feel that God is leading us to make areas of key focus. And so we came up with 3 areas that we felt like are areas of key focus as we move into 2016. First, family ministry. Let's get our youth minister in place. Let's extend the Orange strategy throughout. Let's make sure that we have all the funds we need, the facilities we need, and everything we need to be able to minister to families. And so we said, let's make that one of our key areas of focus. Secondly, we just feel like we need to be doing more in missions and in outreach. And God has sent us a missions committee that is so dedicated, working so hard to find the areas where we can increase missions and outreach. And so as you look at also debt reduction. How do you feel called to have debt reduction? I'll get there. Family ministry. When we said, Brian, what would you do if we had more funds, if we could make more funds available to you? Some of the things we could do is we could offer some free family nights, and we could host a community event. Brian has some great ideas about hosting community events to tie us more into the community, make people more aware of us, what we have to offer, so that we can serve more people. You know, I don't ever want us just to become about the numbers. This is not a numbers game. This is a family. It's not an organization. But what is important is that we can show the love that we have for one another. We can show the love of God to more people by bringing them into to be able to kind of see what we have to offer and minister to them by offering these free community events. Upgrading and enhancing the preschool and elementary environments, and then starting a married people ministry in the fall of 2016 that aligns with our Orange strategy. So as you look at kind of some areas that we could see in 2016 being key areas of focus, what we are telling you is if money comes in above and beyond what we have purposed and what we have budgeted, we're going to set it aside for the things we're going over right now. So it's one of those things to where if you wonder, okay, well, we're meeting our budget, we don't need any additional money. If we do have additional monies, these are some of the areas we would spend it on. As you look at missions and outreach, training for short and long-term missions. Training is important before you send people out into the mission field. We want to make sure that we're funding an additional short-term international mission trips, plural, for our members. The one we did last year was so well received, and we've had more people say, I would like to have gone, or I want to go. And so one of the things you need to do when you do those things is provide scholarships so that the people who can't afford the cost of going on those trips can go on those trips as well. And then sending a survey team, because one of the things that our committee has told us they are committed to and leadership very much supports is making sure we just don't send money. This isn't about sending a check. It's about people. It's about lives, and making sure that we are overseeing and understanding the work. So sending a survey team to encourage and assess the work of Blanca and the Institute. And then beginning planning for additional long-term international missions efforts. Today, we support the charities. We'd love to be supporting 3 families. To do that, we will begin focusing on these as monies become available. You know, Paul wrote, and I believe it's I think it was the Philippians, and basically said, you are a participant in my ministry because you funded my ministry. So sometimes our ministry is hands and feet. Sometimes it's we go out and physically do things ourselves. There are other times when the ministry that we are able to contribute to financially is carried out by others who are able to then go and do. And so, you know, when we think about missions, we are participants in the missions effort because of what we give. Debt reduction. You're like, well, why debt reduction? Because, guys, we spend $213,000 a year paying our debt service. That's why. Think about the good. Think about the kingdom work that could be done with $213,000 a year. That's why we feel like God is calling us to pay our debt off. And so when we start looking to long-range planning, that's something that's really important to us. Probably in 2017, we will be coming to you with some kind of a plan to get rid of that debt. Because when that debt is gone, there's an additional $200,000 a year that can go into kingdom work. So when you think about $213,000 a year, that's a lot of money. When we say, what could we do? There's no end of the list of things that we could do. Obviously, we have a need, I don't know if you're aware, we have a need for some more classroom space. Our adult classes, we are at times maxed out. Our children's classes need more space. So extend classroom space. We've talked about a desire to increase our international missions. When we moved out to these facilities, the desire was that at some point we had an office space for folks to work in. And there was a house here on the property. So if you've ever been to the offices over here, you'll know you walk in and it's a house and it's cramped. And, some of the ministers are basically officing out of closets because that's about the size of some of the space over there. And you say, well, we can make do. Yeah, we can make do. But as we grow and as we want to serve more people and we want to have additional capabilities, that's something that we need to be thinking about in the long range. Upgrading the children's ministry area. I guess you've noticed we have the FX once a month. And when we do FX, we have to kind of set up in the big worship center. It's not the most conducive space for that kind of a thing. We would love to have an area that is dedicated to that children's ministry. And then benevolence. One of the things this church has always had a heart for is benevolence. We've typically done 1 to 2 special givings a year for benevolence. But when there is a need and there are people that are hurting, the church just always shows up. So an area we'd like to increase is benevolence and community outreach, just like we were talking about earlier. One big area of focus, and this is an area that's very spiritual in nature, is our connection groups. We sat down as leadership and we kind of laid out all of the major initiatives, all the major times we get together. We talked about what's the purpose of each one of those. And when we were going through it, it's a church that loves one another. It's a church that's very engaged. So you take a look at Monday Night for the Master. Monday Night for the Master is predominantly about service, but there's a teaching element to it. There's an element to it that also builds connectivity within the body. When you look at Bible classes, those are primarily educational in nature. But there are other elements to that. There's an element that we have announcements so that we can know what's going on in one another's lives, and there's a prayer time. When we look at connection groups, it's one of the singular areas that we feel like we need to put more attention in. That's the primary way in today's church that we connect with one another, that we know what's going on in one another's lives. So as we move into 2016, we ask that you be in prayer with us. There are some folks that are members that come but really aren't plugged in. And we think that connection groups is a way to make people a part of the family. It goes back to the central theme that Tim's been preaching on. Let's make sure that we are looking at this as we are a part of a family and not just an organization. And so, one of the ways to do that is to make sure that everyone is plugged into the family. Because in a family, you know one another. You know what's going on in one another's lives. But in a group as large as ours, you just can't do that for everyone. But one way you can do it is through connection groups. So that will be a major emphasis in 2016. One of the things we want to remind you is we've already started. We did the first half of the Art of Neighboring. That will be coming up in early 2016 as well, finishing up and going through the next stages of the Art of Neighboring. We wanted to mention that we've been blessed recently with some sizable one-time gifts, and we are doing our best to put those to work in the best possible ways. Some of those gifts have been directed towards debt reduction, and that's great because you see the power that lies in debt reduction. But some of those gifts were like the Blacks giving those funds. And we were just a conduit to make sure that there are now teacher scholarships set up because they wanted those funds to go to work in that way. So we just wanted to mention that those are very much appreciated. You know, when we talk to different ministries and we have them come and meet with us, their number one need is not money. Their number one need is more manpower. Every ministry we talk to, it's we need people. We need people to help us, whether it's greeting, grading, whether it's cleaning, handing out care bags, whatever the area of ministry we talk to, we need people. So we ask that you be in prayer about that as well, that we have people, and that if you have time is one of the best things you can give to God, because it's such a finite resource, and it is the most needed resource we have. So as your shepherds, we're asking that you'll be in prayer for us and for the church as it relates to direction, as it relates to discernment, as it relates to resources and opportunities to serve. We believe in a very organic way of going about church. Ministries pop up, ministries grow, they succeed, and eventually some ministries, they pass away. They end the end of their useful life. And our belief is just let that happen, because in so doing, you're letting God's will be done, and you're letting God direct how and where we go. But we want your prayers, and we solicit your prayers on our behalf and on behalf of the church in those areas.